to you all and welcome to another episode of Wear Many Hats. My name's Rachel and this is the podcast totally dedicated to the FM and property industry. Today we've got a great guest with us. We have Daniel Witt Morris. He is the Head of Workplace and Facilities at Peabody. Welcome, Daniel.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's really good to have you here. Did you come from far?
Not too far, no, just slightly outside Bromley in a place called Biggin Hill.
I know it well. So I'm from Bromley.
Yeah, planes, trains and automobiles to get in today.
Yes, it's a bit of a boot, isn't it? So we're over here in Holborn, and then you're off afterwards for a networking event. Right? Same as me. So we've got plenty of time then to go. So shall we start and rewind and
let's go
right back. So let's rewind. Where did it start for you?
Well, I mean, so like a lot of people, I think for me, I didn't have a compass that pointed me at facilities management. So left school and studied business and finance at college. Yeah. And actually quite enjoyed that. I wasn't particularly academic at school, but really got to grips with kind of the theories and the concepts when we went to college and did pretty well, but still didn't really have an idea of wanting to do after college. And so coming out of college, I was very fortunate. One of the things I used to do mountain bike racing as a teenager. So I spent part of the summer couriering over at Canary Wharf while they were building Canary Wharf, which was fantastic. My dad was a construction director there for Olympia, New York. So I'd chuck my mountain bike in the boot of his car. He'd drive to work and I would go around couriering for various different contractors, literally delivering blueprints. So the big, smelly drawings that would make your fingers sting if you had a finger cut and make your eyes water. And that was great, riding around in the summer as a bicycle courier. When I was a kid, there was a TV show and I can't remember the guy's name in it, but, you know, the kind of Grange Hill press gang thing about Streetwise, I think it was called, about couriers. Yeah. So I felt I was really part of the gang delivering these drawings and it was wonderful. So I kind of had an experience of the built environment and the construction game, ductwork. I worked for a company called Heritage Ductwork. Okay. A really chain-smoking, coffee drinking American called Lou. And it was just a fantastic experience for a young guy. And I had money in the pocket and it was really good. But it wasn't a permanent role. It was just kind of a means to an end for that project. Funny enough, I worked Cannon Works. It was opposite where the Barclays is, out just outside of Canary Wharf, but at the time there was no buildings. Canary Wharf was not finished. All the other buildings didn't exist. The DLR had just gone in. I mean, I'm showing my age. My dad had a Sierra company car. It was brand spanking new. It was his pride and joy, his XR 4x4 or whatever it was. But it was good. And then that wrapped up. And little did I know that my aunt, who I thought was very cool because she worked for Shell in London, and I'd go up and meet her sometimes and she'd take us for pizza and, she was great, my Aunt Pat. But she was a facilities manager and she was a facilities manager for Shell and she'd worked her way up from the typing pool. Wow. I'm still, incredibly proud of her, especially if she's listening to this podcast, Aunt Pat. But and so she said, look, I'll get you some experience. If you enroll with Alfred Marks, with your background, they were on the Strand. So I popped over to Alfred Marks with their little yellow pay slips on a stock matrix printer and got on the books and then basically found myself along with a few other lads and older guys, like guys probably my age now, just doing stuff at Shell because Shell's such a big and diverse organisation. Working over what is now like apartments. Really sad. I look up on the train sometimes to see that it used to be my office. I used to work in there. And I actually knocked down the whole of Shell downstream and built something back that looks the same. But it was fantastic. They had a Olympic-sized swimming pool underground. They had cinema rooms. They had tunnels linking the buildings. It was fantastic. And then they had Shellmex House on the Strand with the clock on it. In the Thames. And there was always something to be done. Mainly what we were doing was office moves, which is kind of thing of the past now, but there was always office moves. And basically, they'd be refurbishing the floor. It's called churn because it was so constant. Mixing a bucket of people. And so we'd go into a floor, we'd pack it all up, we'd move it to another floor, we'd recreate exactly the floor above, and they'd refurbish that floor, and a week later we'd put them all back and move somebody else to that floor. Busy. And that was one of the main things. They had a whole supermarket downstairs because I always remember we'd sneak in because we had no money and just quickly have a squirt of Lynx before we headed off. And that was great. And, I did some other stuff. I worked in a plotting office back. I mean, younger people listening won't know what a plotter is, but it was a fantastic machine that would literally grab pens and just draw acetates, which you then put on an overhead projector. And so there was a whole office dedicated to that. And that was actually one of my aunt's teams. And I was always really impressed with how professional these these grown-ups were probably like 25, 26, but they were great. And so, I bought a suit for that from C&A. This really awful green suit. And I'd work in that office. And then the highlight was, this is amazing, they had an email office, and it was called SPS, which was Shell Personal Services, I think, before everybody had email back in the early 90s. And they would send electronic mail. I don't know what it was. And my job was to sit in the office, just print it off every hour, stick it in an envelope and walk around the senior floor to deliver their emails to their desks. But I think that the thing with it was I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed working in that environment, but obviously it wasn't forever. And it's not a career to be, there's no such thing, for me, as a professional temp. And I've always wanted to do something and have, I don't know, mould something. And so, I was also looking for jobs, and I think around about the time I turned 18, I got a job with a company called Euromonitor, who's still going today. They're a big, international market research company.
Right.
And at the time, they were already doing very well, and had a small office in Turnmill Street in Clerkenwell, and another one up by Smithfield Meat Market. And I went in there as just kind of like an office assistant, office manager, and my job was to just do everything really, mainly running the mail and changing light bulbs, and just kind of doing everything. But
so it breaks down.
And manning reception, which I hated because you had lots of people phoning from international areas, and their names you have to announce people. And so my worst thing ever was covering switchboard when I think it was a lady called Yolanda, when she'd go to lunch.
Oh, you had to cover.
And I would hate covering, and I'd have my notepad trying to desperately phonetically spell these complicated surnames, and then pass them on to people. And I'd generally just say, "Oh, hi, John, we've got Mr. Jones for you. Bye." To put it through, because the last thing I wanted was have to go back and take a message. But that kind of grew pretty quick, because within probably about a year, they grew quite rapidly, and they took on a building in Britain Street, and they're still there.
Wow.
And they're still in that building. So I must have done something right. And so, that was a really good opportunity for me, because I think maybe all of us, to not do them a disservice, they were very focused on their business area.
Yeah.
And, it was the 90s, it was kind of like everything was quite slack. So they got the building and they had some work done, but it was very, very basic. They didn't commission the air handling, they didn't do anything with air conditioning, they didn't do anything. There was no fire extinguishers. And so right from the beginning, one of the guys said, we haven't got a cleaning company. So I said, I'll sort out a cleaning company. So I got a cleaning company in, and then it was through talking with them and just going around the building. They were like, you haven't got any fire extinguishers. And I just kind of took control.
So I
joined the British Institute of Facilities Management, which is now the IWFM. I did some courses, and I started going back to the business saying, we need fire extinguishers. We should get proper cleaning contracts in place. We need to get the ducts, because they turned all the air handling on one day. It just filled the office with this mystery dust. I might still die in a year. I don't know what came out. But, and it was kind of like, we need to do some stuff. I mean, I used to light the boiler with a rolled up newspaper. So this is really early doors. Like, I'm sort of 18, and that was it. I used to park my motorbike in the basement until the managing director came down one day and said, why does it smell of two-stroke in here? And I was like, I don't know whose bike that is. I'll find out whose bike it is, and Trevor, and we'll make sure they never park there again. And it was great. And some of the, the other sort of fun jobs you do when you're starting out is just, we used to park cars everywhere, and then you get a phone call from the print guys running, the traffic warden's here. And then so as one of the most junior, a couple of the junior staff, we'd just grab the keys and grab the managing director's Alfa Romeo or the 5 Series and just go driving around for 10 minutes and then come back and park it again. And it was just like a different era. It was always sunny, it was always warm. And I walked down there the other week, and I could just see my little RGV 250 just parked, and it made me kind of a bit emotional. And the building's still there, the same polished concrete floor. So I must have been doing something right. But I think I got to the point where my will to do a proper facilities job didn't marry up with what they thought was needed from me. And it just, very, very fortunately, I think at the time, my dad had started his own business off the back of Canary Wharf, and had gone to work for a construction company that was a start-up at the time. And they'd been kind of just muddling through with their own sort of FM stuff, but they were scaling fairly quickly. And effectively a pre-construction director called Gary France, was kind of doing FM, and I can't be doing this. And my dad said, I see something on the notice board that might suit you. It's like a kind of office and building manager job. He said, I reckon you could do that. So I said, okay, I'll go along and have a look. Like, my dad still had a dream that I'd be a quantity surveyor, which is like, no way. So over I went, and, second job interview of my life, I think, other than, I don't know, Sainsbury's home base, which I don't think we don't go back to home base.
You can go back
and being made redundant from British Home Stores back in the day. But I feel really old now.
Yeah, me too.
In fact, just to say, I went past the Sainsbury's home base I worked at, Peter Pan's Pool, like your local, where I live. It's gone. It's been dismantled. It's so sad. And then the Green Man pub opposite, where my wife had her 21st birthday, is now a community asset. So the world moves forwards, I guess. But no, popped along, had a really great chat. And, and loads of energy in it, and explained to him, what I wanted to do. And he said, it was only a chat. It wasn't an interview, and he'd get in touch with HR and have an interview. So I remember getting on the train and thinking, no, I'm too young. He was a really important guy, this guy. And I got a phone call from him to say he really enjoyed the chat, and when could I start? And honestly, it was just fantastic. So, he had a lot of faith in me. So I really do owe him. He runs a motorcycle tour business in France now, I think, or Spain, which is fantastic. And he was just a really great guy. He gave me I've touched base with him. But I guess on his kind of chart of his career, I'm a very small footnote. But it's amazing how sometimes somebody can make a really big impact to you at a young age, even though to them it's just part of them. There was another chap there after I had a motorbike accident who just saw me looking really worried about something, and I showed him a letter and gave me some great legal advice. And so sometimes, I think it is for me, and I try and do the same to kind of pass that on, and to be that assistant somebody needs. But no, Gary France, was fantastic, gave me a really wonderful opportunity, and I just ran with it. So at the time we were in a place in Shoreditch, and I really took control of it, the cleaning, starting up KPIs and SLAs for services, getting maintenance contracts in, and just kind of owning the space.
Nice.
I mean, I think one of the key challenges was the scale at which the company grew. And we moved to Camden, and I was part of the project team for that, took on the phone system. Started to grow a team, so I had a reception team, security team, FM assistants, and I was still in my 20s, so it was fantastic. And I think it's, if you can go to uni, but I don't think necessarily it's something that you necessarily need, because a lot of what you do, and I think FM is one of those jobs where it's how what you believe and how you act.
It's very hands.
And so, I had a really great time there. I remember once when we were commissioning the building, I went up on the roof to check something, left my coat inside, left my phone inside, the door shut, it was snowing, it was Christmas Eve, and I'm shouting down to the street and no one could hear me, and I had to set off the fire alarm to be saved, or else I'd have been a popsicle on the roof. So that was a mistake I've never made again. I'll always chock a door open when you go on a plant inspection. Of course,
best bit of advice.
Now with more experience, loan working is obviously something that we all focus on. But I had a really great experience there. And I think one of the key challenges there was it was the pre-construction phase of big projects. So they did the London Eye, British Airways' headquarters. There was always bringing people in. And what you had was lots of directors with me at 18, 19, stuck in the middle a bit. Oh, well, these guys aren't important. You need to, unpleasant words off, because we're taking over this floor and we've got 20 people, but within a month we're going to have 100 people before we go to site. So I kind of engineered this concept of the landing floor, I called it, which is where we'd have a floor that I would desperately try and keep people off of, so that I always had some flex space for new project startups and initiatives to have somewhere to come in, because otherwise I was constantly having to restack like the building, and I guess in a way it's kind of probably what fed into my latter interest in like agile and flexible working and workspace utilisation, just to make sure we had that kind of space constantly. And so I was there for 5 or 6 years, I think. But I think one of the key things there that you'd always get is people would say, you're just an overhead. You're just an overhead. Whenever you'd be trying to do something. And I remember thinking, it's a throwaway comment, and it was meant in a light-hearted way. But actually, it'd be great to be a fee earner, and obviously, people do FM and they're paid as FM companies. So I started to look around, and I decided to take that step. So I went to work for Interserve.
Yes.
And I worked for Interserve as a soft facilities facilities manager.
Okay.
And that, I guess that was a kind of validation because everything I'd done to that point had been self-made. So I'd looked at what needed to be done. I'd built kind of FM services. I'd joined the BIFM and gone on some short courses, but I hadn't worked for anybody professional that could actually validate. Everyone, oh, you're doing a great job, but it wasn't. There was no head of FM or facilities manager to say, Dan, this is great. It was all very much, looking at what was out there and doing what I felt was best practice. So going to work for Interserve was great. It gave me that. I worked for a guy called Kevin. I can't remember his surname, unfortunately. So sorry, Kevin, if you're listening. But he was the hard services manager, and I reported to him. And I really thought that this was going to be fantastic. This is, I'm a fee earner now. Right. The clients are going to love me. I'm going to do my best for the clients, and the leadership of my business are going to be like, wow, you're a fee earner. This is great. And actually, it was a really dark time because it was just after September 11. And for any of you like our age that sat and I was on a day off that day, and I sat on the sofa and watched that. The whole world was just out of balance and just felt weird. And right at the same time, I think a plane crashed in New York, and I was standing there outside a TV showroom, and everyone was crowding around looking at it on the display tellies. And it turned out it was just a plane crash, but there was this huge intake of breath. And a lot of the focus there was around terrorism because it was a contract for National Statistics Agency. And so the same kind of Home Office protocols on the different alert statuses, and really, really detailed around quite unwieldy processes around what would happen if it was anthrax, what would happen if it was this, rather than an overall, what would you do if it was a chemical biological attack? And it's kind of like, well, I remember even at a young age thinking, well, if something happens, I'm going to spend 10 minutes flicking through the book to find the chapter for exactly what's happened, rather than just saying, whatever those things are, we need to just go and move out or whatever. And I think as well, the whole feeling I had that, I'm going to be the hero, this is going to be great, it was just kind of mired. It was very contractual. The client oversight was twice the size of our delivery team, and they were formed of the people that used to do the in-house service. So we'd do a cleaning walk around, and it would take a week, and they'd want to check every chair base, every table, every high level with a white glove, which the cleaners, well, they didn't do that when they were running it. And it was difficult, it was challenging, and there was no kind of, again, leadership was kind of ambivalent and just trying to get things done. I want to get things done. So just getting a bench cleaned, I remember cost about 500 quid, and we had a jetting machine and we had the guys. But when I asked them to do it, they announced that, oh no, it's not in the contract, so you've got to get a price. And it's just kind of like, I get it, it's a business model, but it wasn't me. It's not what I wanted to do. I would be quite happy to just grab the jet washer and just clean the bench. I just wanted it cleaned, and it was just really, really fortunate. I guess the key thing is, I think Interserve is a great company, and I've worked with them since. And it was fun at National Statistics. But it wasn't me. I wanted to build something myself and have a team and be in-house. And it was just very, very fortunate that somebody I'd been speaking to as part of that change just contacted me and said, oh, look, are you still looking for a job? And I said, well, not really. I've got a job. And he said, oh, it's a shame because we've got something in-house in Vauxhall Bridge Road. And I was like, oh, really? Because I'm in Vauxhall Bridge Road. And he said, oh, okay. And he told me the address. I said, I'm looking at it now through the window. He said, well, if you've got a tie, why don't you just pop over and have a chat at lunchtime? And I did. And I got that job. So off I went. So, and it was great. So, I went over there, and that was for the Hemming Group, who are a family-owned publishing business. Right. And they do exhibitions and they do trade journals. Yeah. I don't know if they still do, but they did the Wine and Spirits exhibition in London. And they also, I think they did a magazine on signs and lampposts, all sorts of the municipal journal, all sorts of trade journals, very print orientated, and it was family owned, and basically they'd grown and they didn't have a facilities function. Right. And so they just wanted somebody to come in and be their group health and safety and facilities manager. Okay. And so that was it then. That was the formal, brilliant step to just really... Got my title. Start to shape it. Yeah. This is legit. This is official. And it was great. We had offices in London. We had an office down in Sherborne in Dorset. Okay. Which I could go between the two and say I had a national contract, which sounded fantastic. Yes. And that was going well. We did refurbishment work. We did lots of office moves. But ultimately, in 2004, another agent approached me for an interim role, which was a year before my wedding. So it was a kind of really risky move, but it was for Swiss Re. So Swiss Re, the reinsurance company, and it was as part of their move to 30 St Mary's Axe, the Gherkin, which back in 2003 was a big deal.
Yes.
And the job was to run their portfolio whilst Jerry Campbell, who was the facilities manager, moved on to the project delivery team for St Mary's Axe. So there was no guarantee of it going anywhere. But, I talked it through with my wife, or girlfriend at the time, because we were getting married, and we thought it was worth the risk to get that blue chip experience within a really large team, and it was amazing. So, as a Swiss Re, big reinsurance company, big landmark project that they were delivering, and I looked after 3 or 4 sites in London. I had space in Tower 42 on the 19th floor, so at the time, like, tallest building in London. I had space in Leadenhall, which had a Roman ruin in the basement, which was like protected, which was like when else could you have the opportunity to have Roman ruins in your basement? Moorfields opposite City Point, which is a really ugly building, but had a great view of a nice building, which is probably always the better place to be than in a really nice building, look at an ugly building. And it was fantastic. And it was, but my takeaway from it was that actually even running those buildings, not down, but running them towards the end of their leases, there was still a lot more care and attention given to creating a great environment that the previous companies I'd worked at were putting in and wanted to expand into their ongoing portfolio. And I think one of the takeaways for me was that blue chip companies, before I went there, they just got money to burn. But it isn't the case. They understood before everybody else, whilst we sit in this fantastic facility here, they understood that actually what my ethos is. It's about the people, and the built environment is the tool to support the people. And to support the people, you need to provide a great proposition. And so, back in the early 2000s, blue chip companies had bean to cup coffee machines and plants in the office, and great cleaning standards and on-site catering, and a really quality environment that people just wanted to come into and be at. That other companies just didn't have. It was there's a desk, you can smoke in the office and just crack on, stop moaning. But these guys, it was like the temperature's got to be right. The furniture's got to be right. Everything's got to look sharp. And it was brilliant. It was a real eye-opener for me to be able to build some solid SLAs and KPIs and just understand that connection between, so compliance and health and safety is really, really important. That's the base of your pyramid. But when you're building that environment, you've got to remember who you're building it for.
Exactly.
And so, you can be the best expert in the world on HVAC, and I know a lot, but you need to understand how it's relating to people, because it's only there for people. The buildings that you're not running a warehouse, you're running something for people. And I think that was my first kind of understanding that I've taken with me everywhere from there, is that it's about people, and the building's a tool to support the people. That's it. And it needs to just, represent that. So, that was great. And I was there just over a year. And moved from there to a law firm, Davies Arnold Cooper, in the city. And at the time, I think they were one of the top 20 law firms in the city. Really big law firm. Did the Buncefield gas refinery explosion insurance case. And so very, very busy, totally different environment. Kind of blue chip, but run by loads of different senior partners. So lots of challenges in terms of getting approvals on things, and lots of
red tape.
Not so much red tape, but loads of different partners who were the most important person in the business. And that I want this, managing and it didn't mesh with somebody else. And then you're stuck in the middle of it. But it was a great experience. I mean, I think at one point we just did 2 toilets in the hospitality area that cost £40,000, which clearly not even Swiss Re wouldn't have done that, because it was beyond being commercially viable. But it was in that sector. It was a managing partner wanted that, and that was what we did. So it was another really great experience. And we looked after. We had offices in Manchester, had offices in London, several offices in London, and we even had an office in Madrid and Mexico. So went to Madrid, didn't go to Mexico, but got involved in setting up contracts and refurbishments and setting design standards and KPIs across the portfolio. And again, really, really good experience. Really enjoyed working there. I think and that kind of took me up. I think towards the end, the whole London vibe for me was getting a lot of power talking, quite cliquey. And there's a few things we'd been through September 11th, then we had July 2007, and I remember walking. I was not far from Russell Square when it happened, and my wife had been working in the Angel. We just had a baby, and I was just really thinking, is this where I want to be? And at the same time as well, I'd been looking around, and I'd been offered a job at a bank. Okay. And it was another kind of facilities management role, and everybody was saying this is a great opportunity. Go and you've worked for an insurance company, you've worked for a law firm, you're going to go and work for a bank. But the reality was, it was right in the middle of the financial crisis, and the role had come about from downsizing and redundancies and restructuring, and it was such a gloomy vibe.
Yeah, negative end to it.
I was very excited to go into the process, and then I got the offer. And then through the kind of the offer phase, I started to just feel
right.
not great about it. And so, I was strongly considering the options when somebody from an agency that I knew just got in touch and said that they'd had a job for a housing company called London and Quadrant Housing. And at the time I was like, oh God, no, I don't want to work in housing. I don't understand anything about housing. And they, no, it's on the commercial property side. They want to. They're looking at growth, and they want to move from just having a traditional facilities manager, it's a head of role. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's an opportunity. So
you were there a while.
I stepped in, and I went over to meet the exec director for HR, a guy called Tom Nichols, and we just hit it off straight away. His vision of what he wanted to change, to move the service forwards, was fantastic. And 13 years there, did a lot.
You did.
Scaled from 600 people to 3,500 people in 10 years. I think in the region of 20 property acquisitions and disposal. Moved them from a kind of a very 1980s cab office offering where regional maintenance directors were looking after office maintenance with residential contractors with varying degrees of success. Like we had bushes growing out the wall in some. To like a really modern portfolio, and then pushing all the way through that into supporting growth through piloting kind of agile working as early as 2015, and then into kind of 2019 I chaired a project group to look at agile working, and interestingly there was quite a bit of resistance. I felt like I was pushing the boulder up a hill, but then COVID came.
Yes.
And so we'd already started, and all of a sudden I'm now on the other side trying to stop the boulder rolling away because of the enthusiasm. But it was a fantastic opportunity. I think we'll never know what agile working might have been like if we hadn't have had COVID. But certainly it's here. And it was fantastic, and using those kind of metrics around workspace and how people work was really great at leveraging efficiencies and creating a better working environment.
That's it.
Ultimately, I think we like a £2.5 million a year saving through like strategic property disposal.
Gosh.
So brilliant.
You covered a lot now then.
Yeah.
And then moving into your...
So I did 13 years there, and it didn't feel like 13 years. But I think, that realisation came that, 13 years, the latest property strategy I'd done kind of felt to me like the good opportunity to say, right, what's next? And I'd already been talking to two companies. One of them was a student accommodation role, like an estates management role for student accommodation, which I kind of fancied because it hasn't got people in terms of an office environment. But now different. I've got a son at uni, and so probably dodged the bullet there maybe. But I never say never if anyone is, ever likes to talk to me. But and then the other role was with Peabody Housing, who are very similar. Probably the other big provider in social housing.
Yes.
And they'd been through a lot of mergers and acquisitions as well, and they'd just come through a big merger and acquisition with Catalyst Housing. And the facilities function was one of the things that hadn't been kind of dealt with, and so they wanted somebody to come in and shape
as
that
head of,
and look at bringing it up as part of head of workplace and facilities management. And so that's where I've been for 2.5 years. So finished off the end of that merger.
Maybe another 13.
Yeah, another 11 and a half, maybe. I don't know. So we, so a lot of restructure to get the new team in place because it was lots of different roles that overlapped. So streamlining that team. And so Peabody look after some key things. So I look after the corporate portfolio of offices. So that's 4 main corporate offices that are agile offices. And then around about 60 local offices that range from sort of 12 to 2,500 square feet that are out in where we need to be for our residents in our areas where we've got housing. And we also do in-house tech support for our communities team that look after like leisure, of like sports clubs, leisure centres and leisure units that they we've got the tech team that look after the compliance and reactive responses to the properties. And then we've got the portfolio managers, which is a great team of guys that go out and manage the kind of the compliance and have a portfolio where they do the stakeholder relations. So they're kind of relationship managers with the people in those offices. Yeah. And they all do a fantastic job.
And they work under you?
They work for a fantastic operations manager called Catherine Kerr, who joined me about a year and a half in to this journey. And she heads up that operational side. So that's the kind of the hard maintenance and operations compliance side. And then I've got another wonderful person called Maria Fagoli who looks after the kind of workplace operations, which is kind of the admin side, the procurement, the kind of lease management side of it and front of house. We've got a digital scanning team that's all in-house now within its own kind of facility, and also look after the fleet team, which is responsible for over 400 vehicles across the southeast, which is always interesting.
So this all falls under
falls under the workplace and FM role. So it's a chunky role, and we've got a projects team as well that look after projects. So at the moment we're in the process of just putting the finishing touches to a big air conditioning project to air condition a naturally ventilated building that gets to like 30 degrees in the summer. We'll be supplementing that natural ventilation with some energy efficient air conditioning.
Love that.
As part of kind of scaling that area. So that's an office we basically own that was underutilised. It was part of an acquisition. It doesn't have much value on the market. So we're looking at leveraging better use out of it by building sort of some training facilities into it and pushing its utilisation, because it's a lovely site. It just needs some TLC.
That was a lot that you've covered.
Yeah, sorry, that's the whole session.
That's it now, and that's the end of it.
We're not even off the starting blocks.
No, that's fantastic. And you did sort of cover quite a lot of the first three questions is, did you always know that you'll end up on this path? And I guess you did you? You kind of fell into it a little bit with your dad and your aunt. And, your aunt had a fantastic role there, didn't she? And for a female. She worked from the typing pool. Yes. And she's very headstrong, my aunt Pat. So well done, Pat. Yeah. I love that. That she did that. And then to be in Shell as well, such a company. You look like you had those two, your dad and Pat. Yep. To guide you on your way, I guess. And you also mentioned the other gentleman that was over in France, I think you said.
Gary France.
Yeah, I mean, they gave you that real push in your career then. Is there anyone else that you over the year? I mean, that's the thing. We were very blessed to work face to face, And
I think there's so many people. I think, the main ones, Gary France gave me that first opportunity. I think there's been other people as well, of course. But, and I think a great working relationship with Tom at L&Q. We did some great work together. But I think that was more, one of the good things at L&Q is being able to really get in with that C-suite. First company where you were in with the C-suite, where you could sit down and say, look, guys, I think that there's something we can do here around how we're working. And they'd be open to, okay, well, let's see what that looks like and what can that do for us, and let's get the right people in the room, to be able to have an open dialogue. And I actually bumped into Fiona Fletcher-Smith, who's the CEO of L&Q, a little while ago, and she went, Daniel, how are the kids? How are you? And it was just that great, really good company where you could get across the pieces. And I guess, so... And David Montague is the previous CEO of L&Q, again, really good guy at actually listening to the ideas from the business to look at how it could be better.
That's great.
Yeah.
That really is for you and to help you develop.
And I think as well from time they really benefit, because there's a lot of people that kind of exited the private sector, and we're looking at something different through the financial crisis that wouldn't have probably wouldn't with all fairness wouldn't have gone to work at a housing association, but landed and then actually thought, this is not what we thought, this is brilliant, and how can we bring our commercial experience to this area and drive it forwards.
We're still doing that, I guess.
Yeah. You can see it in Peabody's the same.
Exactly. So what does a day actually in your world look like? What are you doing day to day?
I mean, honestly, it's so incredibly varied. I feel like a Swiss Army knife.
Wearing many hats.
It really resonated with me when you said they're wearing many hats. And I was kind of thinking about it. And I was talking to somebody recently and I mentioned I was coming on. Yeah. And we were talking and he said, you just literally wore about 5 hats in just this conversation. What am I doing at the moment? So we're currently looking at reviewing our flexible working arrangements for people. We're looking at how we're utilising space across the week. Yeah. Making sure we're getting best use out of our property. There's a lot of work on that and loads of different initiatives. And we're introducing some different furniture within the offices. Nice. We've just introduced some pods where you can go and take phone calls and Teams meetings. And we've bought, I've bought wobbly stools. Wobbly stools. I had one for ages, and it was my stool sample in the corner. But they're basically wobbly stools, and the idea is that they're there so you can perch against it for 10-15 minutes for your meeting, but you can't camp all day. And we're looking at the behaviours as well, so that people don't claim these pods as this is my office for the day. And we're doing work around that. The behaviours of not booking a meeting room to use as an office all day. Can you use soft seating for a meeting if it's not internally confidential? Can we work in the breakout spaces that we've got so that we don't tie up a meeting room? Book a meeting room for the time, not necessarily for the floor and the time you need, but for what you need.
Exactly.
Affect your time a bit. We don't go to the cinema and expect to have Ghostbusters on. Yeah. You go when it's on. And so, we're currently one of the hats I'm wearing is part of the project team for a new capacity management system called Hubstar. Yeah. Which actually you kind of pick what you need and then it maps you to the best time and room for your need. So you don't get 2 people in a 10-person room. So and it will try and utilise the real estate better. And it nudges people to book space in line with our how many days a week we would like people to be in policy.
And for what they need as well.
It's location based. It knows if you're in the office. Clever. So it checks you into your desk if you happen to be in the office, if you're on a corporate device. It does heat mapping of your Wi-Fi. I mean, I'll say it does it. It will do it. We're working on its introduction. It launches in April, and it can even we're going to be adding capacity sensors to rooms as well, so we can even go back to people and say, look, we saw that you've booked a room 5 times with 2 people, but only the system only saw that 1 person went in. Because one of the biggest things you get in an agile environment is no-shows and not misuse, but a misunderstanding of how to use space can really have a massive negative impact. So you can get a perception that you've got no space because loads of people have put space and not arrived. And then you come in and it's empty, but also because it kind of pinches to the middle of the week. So you can have 114% occupation on a Wednesday and 7% occupation the adjacent day. And so there's a gut feeling from the business to say, oh, let's order more desks, but it's more nuanced than that. You may add some new desks, but you also need to understand it. So that's a big project of mine at the moment is using that data, reviewing those behaviours and working with the business to try and create that great buzz and environment, where you come in to collaborate and that the office needs to support it. And it's a change for FM because, again, I mentioned building as a tool to make people be their best. We're there for people to come in and be their best. And why you're coming in now is to collaborate, to have meetings, to have those water cooler moments, to build that energy. And what you're not necessarily there to do is to sit at your desk in a Teams meeting or to do focused work. And it's about building environments to kind of support that way of working now.
I've been blessed to go along to offices that work like that. I mean, your roles have changed so much over the years.
It used to be lighting a boiler with a rolled up newspaper, and now it's looking at utilisation statistics and satisfaction around creating great workspaces, peanut-free areas or quiet workspaces for people.
We've got prayer rooms,
medical rooms,
the quiet spaces.
I mean, I've got ADHD.
Me too.
I've got ways of dealing with that, and one of the ways we're doing it is creating an area where there's like a no phone call area where people can just
I went somewhere somewhere that had that. It was sort of around the back of the office. Yeah, I'm very blessed. I get to go along and see the office space.
So that's just one thing. As I said, we recently insourced digital scanning. So we built a team. We've got an X-ray machine, which is very exciting and lots of very, very safe, but obviously lots of paperwork to make sure that we're happy that it's very, very safe. You know, you can't put yourself in it and X-ray your foot, but it'll X-ray post and packages coming in, and then it's scanned through a system that utilises AI to triage the mail sorting to kind of streamline that process. Currently looking at our help desk system and looking at a total facilities management system to try and replace that. And I think the team were, while I was on the train here, meet with a company that's got an AI module that can do sort of first point of call. Yeah, looking at a portfolio review, using all the utilisation data to look at, you know, so basically if you look at your operational cost, divide it by your utilisation of space, you can kind of map out what's not washing its face. And sometimes things need to be there because we're not a commercial business, so they have to be there for the good of our residents. But sometimes they don't, and if they're costing 4 times more than your average KPI, they could also actually be flipped into some sort of social value. So you know, an office that's underutilised can be turned into, at the moment I'm doing a lease with a contractor that's doing estate regeneration for us, and we've got an underutilised asset there, so we're gonna allow them to use that on a peppercorn for 2 years to fulfil their neighbourhood improvement works, while saving everybody money on having to go and lease space, you know. But bigger term, you know, and in my previous company, we've moved out of offices that are underutilised and turned it into 8 residential units for the social market. So it's fantastic what you can achieve.
Absolutely. Gosh,
and it's not always about saving money. It's about getting the best value, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So I was going to say, let's talk challenges. But even though that sounded like just in a day of what you do, that's a lot, isn't it? So is your challenge sort of juggling all this? Or
I guess it is really, because very complex organisation, lots of different stakeholders and different business areas, and I think that is the challenge. So I've got a good team, and I think we've got the right areas. So we've got, you know, operations, as I said, we've got fleet, and we've got workplace. And, you know, there's some great people in all of those teams. You know, so
you're doing it all on your own. That's good.
Yeah, and they all know exactly what they're doing. You know, they're the best people for those jobs.
Exactly.
And so that really helps a lot as well. And just making sure you're clear with the business and what they need and what you can deliver. And for me now, it really is having all that data. So, you know, being able to gather the data. I mean, gosh, we gather data and everything. You know, the financial KPIs, the head count, how many people come in the building, how many people are using workspace, how they're using workspace, the temperatures around the building, you know, our response times, how many hours a day our drivers are driving around as opposed to being on site doing works, using AI to chart the most practical route for going around and servicing the 30 offices that are on their kind of patch. So all of that kind of helps. But, you know, it's always a challenge. I think FM, it is a challenge because it's so different. You know, 1 minute we're being asked, you know, we recently fitted out a new academy space, so we've got our own academy at Peabody, which is fantastic, offering training skills to the team and to residents and to apprentices, and it's really fantastic. And so we've got some Muse builders behind our office. They're very niche. We'd been marketing them, but what we did instead, we converted one into an academy space, and so, you know, that was quite a fast track project. So that was exciting. We delivered that, and then we fit another one out as the kind of the scanning and now FM office, and we did that.
Gosh, there's so much going on with you guys. So, I mean, you've just sort of covered this as well. Where do you think the industry's heading and what excites you? Obviously, you've mentioned the AI, you've mentioned a lot around tech and, you know, is there anything else that's going on that excites you?
I think really for me, it does come back to that being data-driven and looking at how we can create. I think that, as I said before, the base of everything is you've got to get the systems right, you've got to get your compliance right and your health and safety right. That's a kind of given, like breathing. So underneath that, that's obviously always a key focus. But once you've done that, on top it is about user experience. You know, we're more like kind of hotels now. We're in this great kind of like WeWork style space today.
Labs.
And it has to be labs. Sorry to name drop labs, not WeWork, labs. WeWork's next door, isn't it? Above Sainsbury's. So, you know, it's all about making sure that if you're in 2-3 days a week, that experience is great on those 2-3 days a week, and that's the challenge. And then balancing the kind of the costs with the output. But it's about understanding how people are using the space and having all of that data and then being able to interpret it to be able to model what things are and how things could be better, and then using that to overlay that data to understand, if people aren't happy somewhere, but it's a general, what's the data to support that? Oh, look, on so many days the office was too hot, or it was too cold, or our response times in that area are quite poor, or there's too much space, or never too much space. There's not enough space on certain days, and being able to use that data. And again, linking to the AI, I think that's a particularly exciting thing. I'm on the AI steering group at work, and we've got our own internal knowledge flow system where we can interpret our own data, and it's fantastic because it's got all of our policies on it. So for the guys that are dealing with our residents, that's fantastic. They can go in, they can ask questions of the AI, what they want to achieve, and it can give them an approach and map them to the policies. And for our guys as well, for internal stuff like HR related issues, they can ask the question and it can guide them to the right policies, but also it can crunch data. You can chuck in a raw spreadsheet of data and say, oh, tell me what our problem areas are in respect of office temperatures. And because we've told it what we want them to be, it can say, 90% of the time your temperature's on track, but on these areas. You can even then ask it, oh, okay, can we look at the weather for that day? On the days where the temperature was 5 degrees above the average temperature, the kind of set point, what was the temperature outside? Oh, on the temperature that day was 32 degrees.
Incredible.
Okay, well, we can kind of start to understand stuff. And it's really the sky's the limit with AI.
It's a friend of yours then, isn't it?
Well,
Peabody
it is. And I think a lot of people are worried about AI, but the reality is, I think it's a human enabler. I think we all probably see it on LinkedIn. You can tell when something's been written by AI, and I think that's quite disappointing. But AI is great for being able to speed up your process.
Yeah, definitely.
But it shouldn't replace the human process.
I don't think it will.
It really, once people get to grips with what it can do, all of the donkey work, all the heavy lifting, the research, you can get it to do that for you.
Concentrate
and then you can focus on that human, you can focus on the empathy, you can focus on all that great work that we do as humans, because all of the running around can be done by an AI assistant.
Love it. And ESG, that's a buzzword. Well, I don't think it's a buzzword anymore. I think it's actually...
It's just part of doing business now. And I think there's been a big change. In the 2000s, I don't know if greenwashing is the word, but there was a lot of ESG done. Yeah. If you look at the Strata building, I don't know who built that, but it's got 3 wind turbines on the roof that have never worked, but someone said slap them on for ESG. And we all probably, people listening to this, have got buildings that were, great environmental ideas in terms of their ventilation that we're now having to fit, retrofit air conditioning into because you just can't cool them. I even think Swiss Re's St Mary's Axe was supposed to open and use fresh air to keep it cool, but it never operated correctly. Whereas I think now it's just kind of common sense to what we're doing. I think humanity as a whole has got this kind of, when I was younger, I want the 325 BMW because it's the fastest, but now it's kind of like, I want the 318 hybrid because it's the most fuel efficient.
Yeah, exactly.
And getting, if you go to Devon on holiday with a family, it used to be, we got here in 3 hours. Now it's I got here and did 42 miles to the gallon. And it's kind of, it's in our psyche.
It is,
so when you come to offices, it's just part of business as usual. You're replacing light and you put in LEDs.
We never used to do that though, did we?
No. And the payback's so quick on LEDs. And I think for me, it's kind of a 3-step thing. And I just think it's kind of lean, which is look at what you've got. How can it be better? Switching off lights at night. Going around, every single desk power unit's got a light. Doesn't sound like a lot of electricity, but if everyone in an organisation with 3,000 people is on every day, it adds up. You can turn them off. Look at your BMS. Occupancy sensors.
And lighting.
Look at your BMS. Your temperature's set historically at 23. You can knocking it down to 21 can save a lot of money. And then you can move on to like clean, which is the occupancy sensors, the LED lighting, right the way through to the top level. Like green is like your capital renewals program. So getting rid of gas boilers, moving towards air and ground sourced heat pumps for moving towards electrification. So, but I think it's just kind of happening naturally. For me, it has to work. It's no good saying, we've got this fantastic eco building and everybody in that building is telling you, it's too cold, it's too hot, we're having to override it all the time. And I think that was 10 years ago, that was happening. I don't see it now. No. We've got some good tech and it's being used effectively.
Brilliant. And so do you think, you sort of answered it, but do you think the industry's innovating fast enough or are we still playing catch up?
I don't know what we'd be playing catch up to, really, unless you've got a kind of hook. But I think we're kind of driving stuff, the facility sector. I think we are.
I mean, you work for
fairly innovative.
Yeah, I think the company you work for as well.
We've got a very strong ESG. I mean, a lot of our kind of bond issue around our development pipeline, the borrowing's based on hitting certain targets. But that's not why they do it, because it's the right thing. And I think more companies now are doing it because it's the right thing. Yeah. But the beauty of it is it's the right thing, and it is the best thing if it's done properly. Yeah. Windmills on top of buildings not always the best thing, but putting in LED lighting panels and PIR controlled lighting and occupancy sensors, and that's the right thing, and it saves you money. So it really is a win-win. Yeah,
love that. So looking back, what moment, and you've probably got a few, but what moment or project are you still proud of today?
I mean, for me, I guess my time at L&Q to date. I mean, it's probably the longest I was in anywhere. Yeah. But, we did some great work there from initially pulling the whole portfolio into one FM service and uplifting it to a design. So, we brought it up to a singular design standard. So wherever you worked, it looked like an L&Q office. Yeah. And we moved from, a kind of, an assortment of different office fit outs to like one singular, good quality office fit out where people feel proud to work. Yeah. The introduction of agile working and really driving that efficiency in being able to really condense our portfolio, but at the same time creating a better working environment for people and giving people that opportunity to be flexible and work for their day. Yes. And being right at the forefront of it, of just being able to say to people, actually, you can work at home. Like if you're working on something focused, work at home. If you've got meetings with the team in the afternoon, you can come into the office. Exactly. And it's so much better. And I really value it personally. I like the fact that I worked from home. I started at 7 this morning. Normally I'd be commuting. Yeah. So I worked from home this morning, and now I'm here in a suit. But earlier on, I was in a hoodie and pajama bottoms, and and that's great. And I value that, because tomorrow I'm in the office doing a team day with the operations team. Lovely. But next Tuesday I might be at home working on some tender documents where I need to focus. Yeah. And so I think you get your head around it. It can be a real engagement tool and a real tool. And I certainly see that there's still companies that are insisting that, no, we're not agile, you have to come to the office every day. And I'm sure there's some sectors where it works. And of course, there's roles in my team, unfortunately, where you have to do that if you're front of house. Exactly, yeah. But I generally think that moving forward, that's a turn off for people. And I think people would avoid going for a job in a company that would demand you have to be in every day. I was in that sector, recruitment. So it really dried up. And it's almost like presenteeism then, Are people really performing just because you're making them come in? Yeah. I mean, I know I perform better now, being able to... Yeah, I think during COVID... Flexible working was fantastic. Exactly. Being at home all the time during COVID was mind death. And... But also going back to being in the office every day just feels alien. Yeah. And again, I said at the beginning, I wonder what flexible and agile working would look like today if we hadn't had COVID, whether it would have been as widely adopted. But I think we were already going there. And we work with a great consultant called AWA, Advanced Workplace Associates, who helped us build that approach at L&Q that was really useful. Yeah. To help it land. And what's something you wish you knew when you were starting out? I think just to advice, to just to take a breath and just be calm. I'm very good at personalising everything, which isn't a good thing, and just having everything have the same gravity. And so I just think it's kind of. Everything is fixable. FMs are problem solvers. Yes. And anything built by a person can be rebuilt by a person. And I'm actually copying that off of a car guy called Matt Armstrong. But there's nothing that you can't do if you just stay calm and never give up. That's really good advice. Never give up. Always carry on going. Striving. But if you need to take a break, step to the side, regroup, but come back, because anything can be sorted. And I think there's been times where I've been younger, things have gone wrong and it's totally overwhelmed me. But what you've got to know is you can reach out to somebody. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to somebody at work, maybe even your parents, because life experience kind of links with FM, because everything is achievable. Yeah. And you've probably been there and seen it. And done it. It took me a while to kind of understand myself, probably into my late 30s, early 40s, to really kind of understand myself and to feel that. So we're really lucky to have,
podcasts and people can listen to this sort of stuff and reach out like LinkedIn. It's a fantastic tool, isn't it? So
yeah, being stuck on your own, and I don't think FM's not a kind of industry where I'm not going to tell you what I did.
No,
then you'll know. It's not like that. We're really happy to share and to support people.
Absolutely, help everyone else. That's brilliant. And so Daniel's saying reach out on LinkedIn if you've got any problems. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Not straight away, just not everyone all at once. So if someone came to you tomorrow saying, I want to do what you do, what would you say to them?
Okay, yeah. So really, I guess from the beginning, I giving this some thought the other day because I've had a few guys that have worked with me I had a fantastic guy called Richard that was a Delhi operations manager for John Lewis.
Okay.
And interestingly, he came in because his girlfriend worked for me in facilities management and he wanted to change. And I remember him coming in to talk to me for exactly this advice.
Yeah.
And when I left L&Q, he was one of my top guys because he actually did come and work for me. And he's absolutely fantastic.
Is he still there?
He's still there because I keep trying to poach him. He's happy where he is. Anyway, Richard, there you are. But and what I said to Richard is basically get an entry-level role. And I think for me, the key thing is I've done almost everything. Gosh. So, I've done help desk, I've done telephones, I've done office moves physically, I've done printing, I've sorted post, I've done DIY repairs around the building. I've put up shelves, and I've worked my way through everything. So as much experience as you can of doing, you don't need to be an engineer. You don't have to be an expert on those things, but you need to understand how it works. You have to hone your problem solving skills. And those problems might be why something keeps dripping. It might be why something's not cooling. It might be why one team is really unhappy with their space. And it might be a political issue, it might be an operational issue, and it might be a technical issue. You need to have got that experience across the piece. Wow. And I think most people that come in like me have grown through all that experience and are able to talk with some kind of authority on the stuff they're dealing with. It's not something where you can have an ology in facilities management. I think getting one is great to kind of armour plate your experience and validate you. Yeah. But I would say earn the experience and get a qualification, but don't think a qualification will enable you to be a facilities manager.
Straight away,
and the whole thing is just around KPIs and contract management. That's important, but you need to understand what goes on, and that will make you better at understanding how what you're managing the KPIs and contracts on actually works.
Yeah, really good bit of advice that is. So let's switch off. You told me a little bit about your family life. So what do you like to do outside your day job?
Gosh, well, sleep. But no, so I mean, I've got 5 children. Gosh. One at uni, and obviously they keep me busy. One's 19 and one is 3, and they're fantastic.
And everything in between.
And everything in between. So we've got uni students, we've got GCSE students, we've got SATs, we've got nursery. And it's wonderful. We're quite outdoorsy, so like walking. We like supboarding. We stand up paddleboarding. Wow, which is great. So I think we've got 3 of those now. So everything's big in our family. So to try and fit everything on. And so love that. I'm really I'm a biker, so I've got a nice sporty Aprilia motorbike. So I love hooning around on that. Despite
the accident you had, you still cycle, you still bicycle.
Yeah. I mean, I had a bad accident in '96, but I had a 20-year break. Wow. And then I kind of wore my wife down, I think, around about 2019. I saw a Bill Burr sketch where he'd been joking that he wanted a helicopter and his wife had said no. And he'd said, I know it's from a place of love, but I'm going to get a helicopter. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to get a motorbike. So I just went on and on until she's fine, whatever. So the next day I bought a Kawasaki Ninja and I haven't looked back. So I'm on an Aprilia now, which is kind of my dream bike. So I like biking and cars, repairing cars. Gosh. My son's Clio got vandalised, so we've been changing doors and wings and headlights and bumpers and getting that back on the road for him. So that was great fun. I mean, very much inspired by a young guy called Matt Armstrong, who's got a channel where he fixes cars.
Brilliant.
Who basically, where I've got that whole, if a man can make it, a man can fix it. And that's great. And then recently I've written a science fiction book, which is quite exciting. So,
you can plug it.
You can plug it. This is fantastic.
Do it. Go.
So I've written a book called The Seandrian Legacy by Dan J. Harrison.
Right.
Might be some typos, but I'm very excited about it. But unfortunately, it's kind of sitting there on Kindle Unlimited. So if you've got Kindle Unlimited,
tag
you
it
can have a look.
LinkedIn. And
hopefully I'll make more than £1. I think £1.93 from some kind person in Canada that read it. So I'm halfway through book 2, so someone's got to read it.
Yes, they do.
My dad loves it, so
that's it.
But I gave him it for free, so.
So last one, what's the best bit of advice you've ever been given?
Right, okay, so this was to calm down, yeah? And so, as I say, I had a great time working with Tom Nichols at my last company, and one of the things that he flagged to me was that, Dan, you're great and you always get the job done, but sometimes when you hear things you don't like, it's very visible. And I knew it. Okay. And so, I think a lot of people don't like getting constructive feedback, I would say. And so it is always difficult. And especially when your thing is to not take things you don't like well. And then all of a sudden someone's telling you that. But that was really good advice, because then I sat there and I became very conscious of it. And it was quite a spike that, I'd sit in a meeting and somebody would be talking nonsense and I would very visibly get my back up. And I'd have this kind of change spike where the information in, I don't like it. Everyone knows that this guy's a bit unhappy. And so, that was great advice. And, so I worked very hard with some mentors to kind of smooth that. And I think now it's that whole just get on, move forwards. There's always a solution. Hear the thing, think about it, reflect, get a solution, move forwards calmly. Brilliant. And it's far better for everybody.
That's a really good bit of advice. You've covered so much today. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Daniel. I really appreciate your time. And this is a very inspiring podcast for anyone that's wanting to get into FM or workplace now. So thank you for coming along and sharing your journey with us. So
No, it's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And enjoy your evening.
It should be good.
Working.
Yeah.
And that's it for today's episode of Wear Many Hats. Please do forward, share this podcast and Daniel's book to anyone that's wanting to get into the FM and workplace industry. And like Daniel said, please reach out to him on LinkedIn if you've got any questions. And thank you once again.
No, thank you very much.
And until next time, take care.